we dive into our leadership conversation in your course, Church Leadership and Administration, we're going to deal with some statistics in the ministry. These statistics are fluid, they're changing, but I just want you to be aware that people are leaving the ministry. People are making moral decisions that are not in line with what the Word of God says about being in ministerial leadership. But as we begin that conversation, we don't need to just focus on the negative. You need to think about there's over 850 definitions of leadership. And so as we look what leadership really is, we're going to look more to spiritual leadership. Leadership is influence. It's the ability of one person to influence others, according to Oswald Sanders. John Maxwell says it's influence, nothing more, nothing less. And so as you just walk through the aspect of what does leadership mean for you in ministry, I hope the course textbook, Being Leaders by Oliver Malphurs, Christian Leadership, is the process whereby servants use their credibility and capability to influence people in a particular context to pursue their God-given direction. I hope you find a leadership definition like that really guides your leading of people. Do you know there's 10 reasons pastors quit the ministry or ministers quit? Discouragement, failure, loneliness, moral failure, financial pressure, anger, burnout, physical health, their marriage or family problems. They're too busy, they're too driven. Those are 10 reasons you're going to be faced with at some point in your ministry. It's important for you to figure out as you lead people to have accountability. It's important for you to find margin, for you to have a day off, for you to have some time to where you invest in yourself. Sunday's not going to be a Sabbath for you. But we even see in Jesus' ministry where there was a 24-hour period where he resolved himself for a Sabbath. We see throughout the Bible people taking a period to rest. Even in the creation, the animals rested on the seventh day. And so it's a biblical principle for you to find rest, for you to find a place to recharge. So there's going to be some advice as you think about your ministry and your leadership. There's going to be an overview of spiritual leadership. But there's going to be one aspect that I really want you to dive into as you think about your leadership as we get started in this course. As you think about Moses in leadership from the early days, when you think about the people in the Old Testament that led in ministry all the way to segue us to Jesus' ministry and how Jesus led the people, you're going to overview those aspects of leadership this week. Jesus is a great model for us. Paul's another great model for us in leadership that we find in the Bible. A lot of us like the term of Jesus' servant leadership and how he served people. Colleagues, I want you to come in close and really focus, though, on clarifying your call. There was a moment when you felt called to ministry. There was a moment when you know that God was calling you beyond just being a career ministry person. There was a call for you to use the gifts that God had given you for the purpose of ministry. So you're going to end this unit this week looking at you answering the call to follow God in ministry. It may take you years to fully define what your call is. I've had students in the classroom talk about their call to ministry and talk about it was an immediate transaction during a worship service. They knew they were called to ministry. I've had other people that talk about, well, I kind of wandered in the wilderness. I wanted to be in ministry, but I went to college and did something else, and then I got a job somewhere else, and their journey was a little more back in the desert, if you will, before they came to an official statement of call. Some has not been quite that long. Some have just been on a journey. Some have been radically saved out of a lifestyle in adulthood and feel called to ministry very shortly thereafter. Everybody's call may look a little different. We see that in how Jesus called the disciples. We see that in how Paul was radically saved and then called to ministry and how his life took a different role. What is important for you is your call to salvation and your call to ministry, to just evaluate those and then look. We all have a ministry. We're all called to ministry if we're saved. So then there's a vocational call to Christian service. We see that in Jeremiah 1. We see that in Paul in Acts 9. We see that in Barnabas and Saul in Acts 13. We see that in 1 Thessalonians 5. verse 24. So it's going to be important for you to unpack that, to interpret your call, and really figure out where God is leading you, because that's going to define how you lead the people. It's what God's called you to do in the first place. So I hope this week is helpful for you to get a lens for spiritual leadership, to get a lens for the definitions you need here, but also to just have that moment where you go back before the Lord fresh and anew, and remember that day He saved you, remember that day He led you to ministry, and remember that day it was confirmed you're called to ministry, and just what that journey, you may even want to write it down. So I'm just praying with you and pray you have a great semester as we unpack leading the people God has called us to lead, administering the work He's called us to do. Have a great day.